So, as far as the mechanics of the ambush, generally speaking, you're going to initiate an ambush with the most casualty producing weapon. That's usually going to be either a landmine or a belt-fed machine gun. So it's going to be the big guns, landmines, maybe rockets. There's some anti-personnel variants of the RPG. The U.S. military doesn't use a lot of anti-personnel shoulder-fire type rockets, although we have grenade launchers. If you can get a hold of one of those MGLs, one of those six-shot multiple grenade launchers, having somebody who's relatively accurate with one of those initiate the ambush by firing all 6 rounds into the enemy area, that's a good, devastating initial weapon. What does not count for this, okay, there's a difference between demolition charges and landmines. Demo, like let's say blowing a tree with tannerite or something, that's not necessarily your casualty producing stuff. It maybe is a distractor or something like that. That's not something you generally use to initiate an ambush. If you're going along and for some reason some big piece of demo went off, if it's a trained people, that demo, if you're not seeing people fall down, if it was not an actual casualty producing device, maybe it's a distraction, maybe somebody was blowing trees to make an abatis or some other kind of barrier, but if it's not followed by a lot of small arms fire, it's probably not an ambush. It may have actually just been an accident, possibly a booby trap that is not initiating an ambush. Notice that when an ambush is initiated, it's a command detonated weapon. Booby traps are not it. If you run into a booby trap, if it's not followed immediately by a lot of small arms fire, it's probably not an ambush. It's probably just you ran into somebody's defensive position or a booby trap that was set for its own purpose. Now, on a fire ambush, it's basically sniping. You know, it's sniping or it's a distant weapon. And it's probably not necessarily both. Okay? Fire ambush is sniping. Or maybe a long range with a belt-fed. The Afghan people, that they'll tend to just do some long range. You know, you get in view because of the way the mountain passes work out over there. They get in within view. They'll fire some stuff from a belt fed, and they're so high up the hillside you're not going to climb up after them. Remember what I talk about? There's a barrier between the ambush team that doesn't prevent fire. It prevents movement, though. If these guys are out here with a belt fed and they're just kind of taking pot shots, the barrier is the distance. Okay, that's what the barrier is. The barrier is the distance. And then if they're conducting the ambush, one of the things I was talking about, less experienced or less able troops, maneuver should not be necessary in a well set up ambush, which means that you could use less physically able troops to conduct ambushes as opposed to conducting patrolling. Although good squared away, studly troops and all that, they can do anything, right? But you can use less capable troops because maneuver should not be necessary in a well-planned ambush. You're also talking about the economy of fire limitations, especially, let's say you've got an irregular force that is relatively lightly armed. And I talked about having a concentration of firearm, a concentration of fire available on the short leg of the L. Okay, there's a concentration of fire here. On the long leg of the L, not only would it perhaps not even be a concentration of fire, these people are also going to be doing an economy of fire, and they may be low on ammunition. If anybody in your group is low on ammunition, put them on the long leg of the L, where at least you have a lot of people at the front, you have your overlapping sectors of fire, and they can make the most use of that limited amount of ammunition. These guys, because they're concentrated and clumped together, they're going to need a lot of ammo. And in general, when somebody is conducting ambushes or counter ambush drills or patrols, it doesn't take, if an ambush is well planned, it doesn't take huge amounts of ammo to conduct an ambush. So it's a good strategy, good tactic to undertake if you have to do an economy of fire situation. And again, if you have limitations on firepower with certain individuals, you put them on the long leg of the ambush. It reduces the variables in an operation. Again, if you're using lesser trained troops, or if you're unsure of a situation, you're picking the time and place of the fight. There's less guessing going on when you're the people conducting the ambush as opposed to conducting the patrol. If somebody's conducting a patrol, they pretty much got to have their game on. They got to know what they're doing. On the ambush, there's fewer variables. There's less guessing. It's usually a little bit more of a sure thing about what's going to happen. Either you're going to wipe out the enemy and consolidate them, or you're going to run away while they're dealing with either natural or artificial barriers or just the distance involved. Let's say whether it's a near or the close ambush. And then you're also reducing the amount of decision making for inexperienced forces, which means that if you've got a group here that's highly supervised by a leader element, they are if you have some inexperienced people there, they're not being stuck alone having to make their own decisions. The same goes with a sniper team or an observation team. Over here we've got another leadership element. They have a restricted rule of engagement. They're under direct supervision of a higher leadership element. And these guys all pretty much are going to be briefed ahead of time, which means there's not a whole lot of super complex decision making that's being made for inexperienced troops who are conducting ambushes. And so those are basically the elements of those conducting ambushes. And we'll see other videos in the series on counter ambush techniques.